Dozens of Defence Force personnel have packed up and left as police pull the pin on their latest outback search for South Australian boy Gus Lamont. As Lauren Rose reports, it's been almost 3 weeks since the little boy vanished.
Sometimes there are places where strange things happen. Not once, not twice, but again and again. Places that look quiet on the outside, but carry stories the wind refuses to let go of. When 4-year-old Gus Lamont vanished, people called it a freak accident, a tragic mistake. But the locals, the ones who've lived on that land their entire lives, knew better. They'd seen this before. Because years before Gus disappeared, another little boy went missing from almost the exact same stretch of land. Same area, same kind of day, same silence afterward. And though it happened long ago, the memory still lingers, like a ghost that never really left. Some say the land out there has a strange pull, that once it takes something, it doesn't give it back. The more you hear, the harder it is to believe these are just coincidences. So tonight, we're going to walk through the story again, from the beginning. From the boy who vanished without a trace, to the whispers that maybe, just maybe, the land itself remembers. Before we dive into this mystery, do me a quick favor. If you love true crime stories told with real detail and respect, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video so more people can join the conversation. And down in the comments, tell me where you're watching from and what you think could really be happening out there. Because what happened to Gus Lamont might not be the first time that land has taken a child. And the most haunting part, it might not be the last. Not long after Gus vanished, a neighbor spoke quietly to a local reporter. He said something that caught everyone off guard. He claimed that years ago, his own child had gone missing on the same stretch of land. A boy about 6 years old named Eli. The man, a local farmer, said it happened on a calm afternoon. His son had been playing near an old windmill not far from their home. He looked away for just a moment, and when he turned back, the boy was gone. There were no signs of a struggle, no footprints leading anywhere. It was as if the ground itself had swallowed him whole. The story had never been widely spoken about, just a few whispers between neighbors over the years. But when Gus disappeared, those whispers came alive again. People started to remember what that farmer once said, and how eerily similar it sounded. 2 boys, different years, same area, same silence afterward. Locals began to say that there's something about that land, something it hides deep beneath the surface. That once it takes something, it never gives it back. It was a quiet afternoon, the kind where time moves slowly and the air hangs heavy with heat. Gus was outside, playing near the same mounds of dirt he always loved. His grandmother watched from the veranda, calling out every now and then, just to be sure he was close. Around 5 p.m., she turned her back for less than a minute. When she looked again, the yard was empty. No movement, no laughter, just stillness. At first, she thought he might have wandered behind the shed. But as she walked further, calling his name, unease began to creep in. By the time the others joined in the search, the sun was beginning to dip, painting the land gold and red, and making every shadow look like it could hide something. Then, about 500 meters from the house, someone noticed something faint pressed into the sand. A single footprint, small, clear, and facing away from the house. But there was no second print, no sign of where he went next. The family searched through the night, their torches cutting through the darkness, calling his name again and again. The land gave no answer. And what made it worse, what chilled everyone who knew the story, was that the place where that footprint was found wasn't far from where that other boy, Eli, had last been seen years earlier. 2 boys, same ground, same disappearance. The coincidence was too much for some to ignore. As word spread about Gus's disappearance, old stories began to resurface, the kind that people usually whisper, not tell aloud. Locals spoke of strange things that had happened on that land long before either boy was born. The property sat near what used to be a prospecting area over a century ago, a place dotted with abandoned mine shafts and forgotten wells, many never mapped or sealed. Some said the ground there wasn't safe, that it shifted, that hollow echoes could sometimes be heard underfoot, especially after heavy rain. One elderly resident told a story of seeing flickering lights late at night in that direction, as if lanterns were moving slowly through the scrub, but vanishing the moment anyone approached. Another swore they had once heard a child crying, carried on the wind, faint, distant, and impossible to trace. At first, these were dismissed as superstitions, stories told by people living too long in isolation. But as Gus's disappearance mirrored Eli's, the tales began to sound less like folklore and more like warnings that had been ignored. They called it the ground that breathes, a name passed quietly among old families in the district. Some said it was the land reclaiming what once belonged to it. Others believed it was something else entirely, something that watched, waited, and took only when no one was looking. Whatever it was, one thing was certain: the closer people looked, the stranger things seemed to become. When the days passed and no sign of Gus appeared, people began to form their own explanations, each one darker than the last. Some locals clung to the simplest theory that Gus had wandered off, lost in the scrub, and met with an accident. But even the search teams found that hard to accept. The area had been combed over and over by trackers, volunteers, even drones. Not a single trace was found beyond that one lonely footprint. Others whispered about the old mines beneath the land. They said there were holes so deep, so hidden, that a person could fall through without a sound. And if the ground shifted, the entrance would seal again, erasing all evidence. Some believed both Gus and the farmer's missing boy, Eli, had met that same fate, swallowed by the earth itself. But there were stranger ideas too. A few residents believed the land was cursed, that something had happened there long ago that left it tainted. They spoke about the lights seen in the distance, about tools found moved overnight, about the echo of children's laughter carried on windless nights. Then came the outsiders, the online theorists, the self-proclaimed detectives who pieced together photos, timelines, and stories, trying to prove something bigger was at play. They suggested that maybe it wasn't the land at all, maybe someone knew more than they were saying. Each theory grew wilder than the last, and soon no one could tell where truth ended and imagination began. But for those who lived nearby, the fear was very real, because whether the land was hiding something or someone was, the result was the same. 2 boys had vanished, and silence had taken their place. Weeks had passed since the search for Gus was called off. The town had gone quiet, too quiet. Locals tried to move on, but whispers still drifted around the pub, the grocery store, and the dusty road that led past the Lamont's homestead. Then, something unexpected happened. A local farmer, the same one who had spoken about his missing son Eli, was checking his water tanks early one morning when he noticed something odd near the far edge of his property. A child's boot, half buried in the dirt. The color had faded, but the style looked familiar. He didn't call the police right away. Instead, he drove straight to the Lamont's house, carrying the boot in silence. Gus's grandmother took one look and nearly collapsed. "It's his," she whispered. "That's Gus's boot." The news spread like wildfire. People began asking if this was proof Gus had wandered farther than anyone imagined, or if someone had moved the boot there later. The location made no sense. It was several kilometers away, beyond the area search teams had already scoured, and eerily not far from where Eli's old bike had been found years earlier. Searchers returned to the site, combing through every inch of ground, but again, nothing else turned up. No footprints, no fabric, no remains, just one small boot, and 1,000 new questions. For some, it was hope. For others, it was proof that something or someone was still out there. After the discovery of the boot, Unta was no longer a quiet town. The story spread fast, faster than anyone could contain it. By the end of the week, locals were whispering about the land that takes children. It started with harmless talk at the diner. Then, posts began popping up online. Strange, grainy photos, eerie captions, and claims that Gus's disappearance wasn't an accident. Some said the Lamont property was cursed. Others claimed there was something buried deep beneath that land, something that didn't want to be disturbed. A few even insisted they had seen lights near the ridge on foggy nights, flickering, moving, then vanishing, like someone walking with a lantern, searching, but no one ever found footprints or tire marks. The Lamonts, desperate for peace, avoided town altogether, but even they couldn't escape the rumors. A neighbor mentioned hearing quiet knocks on his window one night, followed by the faint sound of a child's laughter carried by the wind. He swore he saw a small figure near the fence line, barefoot, and gone within seconds. Of course, most dismissed it as stress, imagination, or too much whiskey, but still, the feeling lingered, that something wasn't right, that Gus's disappearance, and Eli's before him, were connected in ways no one dared to admit out loud. No one knew if the boot had truly belonged to Gus, or if it was placed there to send a message. In the days after Gus disappeared, people around Oak Park started noticing small, uneasy details. The search had slowed, but the conversations hadn't. Neighbors began recalling odd things that happened before, things they hadn't thought twice about until now. One local farmer, who lived about 20 minutes from the Lamont property, property, quietly mentioned something during an interview. He said this wasn't the first time a child had vanished in that area. Years ago, his own son, just 5 at the time, had gone missing for several hours before being found near a dry creek bed, covered in dust, and confused about how he got there. The boy couldn't explain anything. He just said he followed something he saw. It wasn't treated as a big case back then, and no one connected the incidents. Until now. The farmer's words spread quietly through the town, making people wonder if there was something about that land. Not cursed, not haunted, just strange. Even search volunteers admitted something felt off. One tracker said the footprints didn't make sense. He swore that a few impressions near the house looked too deep, as if someone had been walking slowly, carrying extra weight. But when he went back the next day to recheck, the prints were gone, erased by wind overnight. No one could prove anything. But the quiet rumor started. Maybe this wasn't just one disappearance. Maybe it was a pattern no one wanted to see. After the farmer's quiet admission that this wasn't the first time a child had vanished from the area, whispers began to spread. People who had lived there for decades started to recall strange moments, unexplained sounds at night, livestock found scattered far from their pens, shadows that moved when the wind was still. No one spoke openly about it at first. In small towns, silence often feels safer than curiosity. But as the days passed, and no trace of Gus was found, that silence turned into unease. Some began to wonder if the land itself carried a kind of curse, or if something long buried was finally resurfacing. Older residents mentioned that, for as long as they could remember, children were warned not to wander near the old fence line after sunset. Not because of animals, not because of danger they could see, but because of something they couldn't quite explain. It was superstition to some, memory to others. But now, with another child gone, those old stories didn't sound like myths anymore. As the unease grew, theories started to form, quietly at first, then louder as fear spread. Some locals believed the land itself was to blame. They said the soil was different near the old fence line, that animals avoided it, and that compasses sometimes spun without direction. A few even claimed they had seen lights, faint, flickering glows that hovered above the ground before fading into the dark. Others dismissed those stories as superstition, pointing instead to something more human. They whispered about travelers who passed through without a trace, about people who came to work on nearby properties and never returned. One man recalled seeing a strange vehicle parked near the creek weeks before Gus went missing. An old truck, its headlights off, sitting motionless in the middle of the night. No one could prove any of it, but everyone had a story, a feeling or a suspicion. And with each new rumor, the boundary between reality and imagination began to blur. By now, what had started as a desperate search for a missing boy had turned into something much larger, a mystery that felt older than anyone could remember. In the weeks after Gus vanished, locals couldn't shake the feeling that history was repeating itself. Old-timers in town began recalling stories about another disappearance, one that had happened years earlier. A local farmer claimed his eldest son, Eli, had gone missing in nearly the same spot. The boy was around the same age, and just like Gus, he was last seen playing near a dirt mound before dinner. No major search was ever recorded, and the case quietly faded from memory, the kind of story that gets passed down in whispers but never written down. Now, with Gus gone, those old memories resurfaced. People began comparing the two cases, the timing, the place, even the eerie detail that both boys were wearing blue shirts when they disappeared. When investigators looked through local reports, they found nothing official. No missing person file, no follow-up. It was as if Eli's disappearance had been forgotten before it even began. The only record came from the farmer's recollection, a quiet man who still lived near the property and avoided talking about it. Whether connected or not, the pattern unsettled everyone. Two boys, years apart, vanishing without a trace from the same patch of land. Coincidence? Maybe. But in a place that vast, where every sound carries for miles, how could a child disappear twice from the same ground, without anyone seeing a thing? As the months went by, Gus Lamont's disappearance slowly slipped from the headlines, but not from people's minds. In towns across South Australia, his name still came up in quiet conversations. Every few weeks, someone would bring it up again. That strange, unsettling story from the outback, where a boy simply magically vanished. Locals still whisper about the old farmer, who once said his own child, Eli, disappeared in almost the same way. No record, no search, no resolution, just another child gone, from the same stretch of dry, open land. Some believe the man's story. Others think it's something people told themselves to make sense of the impossible. But every time someone mentions it, the same uneasy question surfaces again. Was the farmer telling the truth? Or was it just a coincidence born from grief and imagination? And then an even more haunting thought follows, one that people hesitate to say out loud. What if Eli's story and Gus's story aren't separate at all? What if, somehow, the same mystery found its way back to that land, just wearing a different name? Maybe it's nothing more than the cruel symmetry of tragedy. Or maybe, as some quietly believe, the outback remembers what it takes. The truth is, no one really knows. All that remains is silence, a single footprint in the sand, and two names forever tied to a place that refuses to give answers. Do you believe the farmer's story about Eli? Or could it be that what happened to Gus Lamont is something much stranger, a mystery that came back to finish what it started? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Do you think there's a connection, or is this just coincidence? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because somewhere out there, another story like this one might already be unfolding.